the first, ding ding, I was like, okay, what's going on there? And then at the end, when Sean broke in, it was a little shocking too, because we're not that smart.
Well, I don't know that it would have been super obvious. We were trying to make it a little bit more of like a surprise reveal at the end, where you're going through and you're hearing this bell and you're noticing that something's switching, but you're not quite sure what it is. So I'm kind of curious as to whether, once you figured it out at the end, if it worked for you or if you still thought it was weird.
Yeah. If it made sense by the end.
Yes, it did. And then I watched it again and, paying attention more to that. And I mean, obviously I'd gotten it that you guys were going back and forth in the same role, because at the beginning I was trying to think, okay, who's playing which role? And then I obviously the first ding, you realize you were both playing the same role. And then, and I didn't notice until the end that the dinging had stopped until I watched it the second time and then picked up on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good.
So maybe should we start, Christy? You want to say like how you found the show and then how we decided to do the audition angle for it?
Yeah, so I had directed this piece when I was doing my MFA, getting my MFA in acting, and I was a very, very young and inexperienced director, and it was an incredibly challenging piece to try to direct. And it's originally written so that it's actually just it's the one actress who has the whole 14-minute monologue. So it's a huge challenge from an acting standpoint, which makes it a big challenge from a directing standpoint, just trying to figure out how to support the actor as the actor figures out what that journey is, and give enough guidance so that the story really, really lives. So I had always wanted to do this show again, try it out again, see if I could learn some new things with it. So when I think I contacted you about it, Katie.
Yeah, I think like December or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just kind of had it in the back of my mind, and I was like, I would like to do a show with Katie again, and maybe we could do something over Zoom. And so contacted her, and we were able to get it together. We had a couple meetings in January, and then really started working on it full force beginning of February.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess, so she sent me the script and I read it and I go, oh, I really like this. And I went, but I want to be the one who does the monologue. And I'm sure that Christy wants to be the one who also does a monologue. And so I was like, well, how do we do this? Because, we would both. So I was already thinking about that angle. And then, they're actresses in the play. And then we were thinking about, March is Women's History Month, and I guess Monday is actually International Women's Day. So I was trying to think about kind of the gendered aspects of it, and we talked a lot about this, and I was thinking that kind of we've got here in the show two kind of stereotypical roles for women. We've got the good mother and wife who also goes hysterical, kind of basically. And then we've got the other woman who doesn't say anything, but we already know enough about her by the fact that she had an affair. So we've got these two stereotypical views of women. And I was thinking about, the idea that any women could be this at once. So the Madonna or the whore. And so I was thinking, okay, well, why don't we do it so that the two actresses could be switching between those roles, as if every woman has that in her back pocket, so she could be one or the other. And then it was important for us that the person who was telling them to change would be a male director. So that was kind of our thoughts going into it. So in terms of the question about the bell, then it was partially a stylistic choice, but also kind of a performance choice. So when we split up the show into like the parts, towards the end, we realized if we had the bell going, it would kind of break some of the flow. But we also our kind of our justification for it was also that kind of by the end of the play, the actresses are taking over a little bit for the director and moving along rather than being told when they need to switch up.
Something that really interested me was the reactions of the silent woman, and trying to see what is she thinking, what is her story, and each of you did that as with the other part very differently, which makes it really, really fun to watch one part done by two people, but it's actually two parts done by two people. And they're very, very different styles and different personalities, but they both work so well.
Right, and we had a long conversation about what we think what was really going on. One question I think we wanted to know is, do you think that the second character, the silent one, who actually gets a name at least, so they're listed as Mrs. X and Miss Y, although we find out Miss Y is named Amelia. Do we think that Amelia had an affair with Bob, the husband?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Barbara, what's your take?
I can go either way. I mean, I can certainly see Mrs. X as being mildly unhinged. Especially because she kind of accelerates as it goes on and on. She just keeps sort of going to a little bit higher pitch, little bit higher pitch. So we talked a lot, and at least in my head, for my version, there actually wasn't an affair. So it was a little bit in Mrs. X's head, but in her head because of what Bob, the husband, was kind of telling her, and his behavior. So we talked about this a little bit. My idea was that Miss Y, Amelia, actually rebuffed Bob, and he was very unhappy about that. But he kind of made it seem like she was the one pursuing him.
Mm-hmm. Although, Katie, it was interesting to watch, both of you, but it dawned on you, as you were speaking, that Bob had been unfaithful and probably with Amelia.
Right. Yeah, I think that was definitely for both of our Mrs. X's. It was true that they had an affair for her.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely believed it.
So whether she just went off the deep end and believed that, or whether it actually happened,
right,
doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why did you have Sean, the director, so dismissive of you at the end? I mean, what did you think that he was thinking? Why neither one of you would be suitable?
Well, we were also thinking about a little bit about kind of the acting process, and we've both been on many auditions where you've got 2 or 3 or lots of really very good actresses, and it comes down to the end, kind of the director having this wealth of talent going, she looks what I had in my head.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what it was playing off of too. And also this idea that like, oh, I can bring in any actress, I can bring in any woman who could do this. I'm just looking for this specific look I'm going for here.
Yeah, specific physical look rather than mental or capability.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And not even really caring what they have going on, which is kind of, in a way, that's kind of like Bob in the show. I mean, it sounds like he is a man who's very committed to his work, and whatever happens to strike his fancy at the moment.
Tulips.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, what was with the tulips?
We don't know. You gotta ask Strindberg. What with the tulips?
Although, I mean, the tulips are kind of usually, so Strindberg was
Swedish.
Swedish? Yeah, Swedish. So, I mean, tulips are definitely a Dutch flower. Like you see that a lot in, so I'm not sure if that also translates to being an important flower for Sweden or not. But I think there's probably more history to be delved into to figure out exactly why he was into tulips. Bob and his little feet.
Yeah, Bob and his little feet. I mean, so maybe Bob was Dutch originally, and that's why he cared about the tulips.
Yeah. Although it was very unusual for a man to want something embroidered on his slippers anyway. I thought that made Bob seem kind of, Bob with his little feet and his tulips, a little effeminate.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little concerned about Bob.
Right. Concerned about Bob.
On the other hand, having something like that embroidered on an object that you had in your house. So this would have been the late 1800s. And so it might have been more of a sign of opulence at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been all sorts of odd fashions throughout history. Like in the 1700s, you had men who were wearing like the short high heels,
right?
Which would be thought of very differently today than it would have been in that point. But during that period, that was how people showed that they were, they came from a certain class. There were certain expectations that you could have them as far as their means of getting things done, or
well, also there was, I believe, and Barbara, I think you and I were discussing this, tulip wars that broke out. I mean, tulips became imported from Turkey and became incredibly important in Holland and all of Europe, and the prices were astronomical, and then eventually people lost a lot of money by heavily investing in tulips. So there's a background on tulips that probably it goes beyond Holland.
Yeah,
that's really, really fascinating. Yeah, so I bet it does somehow show it's a sign of influence, and the fact that Amelia or Mademoiselle Y, that she likes tulips, and probably a man who would be interested in her would need to bring her tulips.
Yeah.
And they were such a hard to find commodity.
Right. Huh. You said been a sign of wealth.
Yeah. So a question for the audience is, so this was written in 1889 in Sweden. Do we think did it still resonate in any way with current day conditions?
I thought it did. At the beginning, in particular, I was amused by Mrs. X's really annoying way of kind of bragging while she's putting things down. And what person, what mother or parent has not complained about their horrible children, which is really what they're doing, is bragging. And I found that very amusing.
But also this kind of complaining, but also bragging.
Yes,
totally.
Right.
Bragging about, being married and having children while, your poor friend Amelia is sitting there, at the table with nothing to do on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
No one to spend it with. Where you have your little footed husband at home.
So one thing that Katie brought up, which was interesting, one of the translations of this script that she looked at had a footnote that said that obviously Strindberg really understood the female mind since he wrote this play. So we were both curious as to, having seen the play, what you would think about that. Does Strindberg understand the female mind?
And I'll actually note that this was the editor's note of a version of it, and the editor was a male. Just so So there's no better, he said it was like, there's no better evidence that Strindberg really had an uncanny understanding of the female mind.
I think he had some understanding of the female mind. I didn't find it uncanny.
Right.
It was kind of.
I don't know that he completely got either woman.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that he, maybe that's how men like to think of women as, one being the, the perfect wife and the other being, as you said, Katie and the Madonna and the whore. And he obviously understood them, the tension between them.
By the way, about whether Strindberg is relevant or not, didn't Woody Allen drop his name in at least one or more of his movies? Yeah.
I have only seen one Woody Allen movie in my life, and that was Annie Hall. And I don't remember him mentioning Strindberg in Annie Hall.
I think he did in Manhattan. I could be wrong on that, but I think he did.
It wouldn't surprise me. I think he's a playwright that, like, if you were a theater major, about.
Yeah.
Most people are familiar with Miss Julie is probably his most well-known play.
Which, so I got my theater degree at Vassar, and when Meryl Streep was at Vassar, she played Miss Julie in Miss Julie, and they made a big deal of showing us the video of Meryl Streep playing that role when she was in Vassar, and we all had to watch it and be awed that even at that young age, she was already tippy top.
Yeah.
Which she was.
I could say, and she probably was.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Meryl Streep. She's one of my favorites. I definitely appreciate the breadth of her work a lot.
Definitely.
So another question that we had, so one thing that these two women are doing is it's like they're competing with each other throughout this play, because Madam X comes in and she's bragging about her kids, and she's like, even from the beginning, it seems like she's trying to prove that where she is at in life is better than where Amelia is in life. So one question that we thought about is, do women still prove whether or not they're stronger by competing with each other?
I think that there often is a competitive element between women friends. Maybe not quite this vicious. But aren't we always comparing ourselves to one another? We're comparing our lives to those of other people, and as the years go by, you determine it. A lot of things kind of even out when you bring in all the factors. But maybe where these women are, they're still on the climb. They're still thinking that tomorrow's always going to be closer to whatever their goal is, their role in society, their wealth, their bratty little children.
Mm-hmm.
And you still hear a lot about, obviously Barbara and I are older, of the conflict between mothers and single women, and women losing their friendships with other single women when they become mothers, and then moving on to a different stage of life and kind of leaving their their single friends behind. So I think that hasn't changed at all.
Yeah,
I think that's valid. I mean, even employed mothers and stay-at-home mothers, there's real tension there. So I feel like women, I don't know if we do it to ourselves or if it's society or maybe all of the above. We're kind of constantly being measured against one another, and we're doing it to ourselves.
right.
Yeah, I agree, Barbara.
Which I think is, the play a little bit gets at this idea, because in some ways they're driven by Bob, by the director, but also like by the end, they're just doing their own thing as well.
Mhm.
Indeed, they were.
Yeah,
Bam, 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 back and forth.
exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Yes, that part was definitely very good. Not the other part wasn't, but I really enjoyed it when it got to be, you know, down to a boxing match between the two of you.
And the thing is, it's at least when I went back and watched it, it's almost like at the end, they could have been two totally different people having this argument, even though they were supposed to be one character.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree. I definitely got that. It was like they were changing places and, you know, yeah, it became too warring, you know,
Right.
rather than doing the same character.
mhm.
Well, at the beginning, I was wondering if the two of you were playing a different kind of person in the same role or not. Or
I think a little bit. Yeah, because also if you think about this, if this is an audition process, I know Chrissy and I, since we've been in these a lot, you know, you see someone else do a role and you think, well, I can't do it, you know, the audition, I can't do it exactly the same. So I've got to add my own take onto this.
Yeah.
And so I think
Better
that,
version.
yeah, better version or something different, or, you know, so, okay, she's going to try this. There's nothing worse than an actress having an idea about what she's going to do. And then the first person who gets to do the audition does it. And you're like, oh, she took mine. Now I'll just look like I'm copying her.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, and Katie and I actually had a long conversation about this pretty early on. Like, do we want to create our own like different backstories so that they are super different, so that, you know, it's very clear that they're different people? And we decided, like, as far as the facts of what was actually going on, that we would continue to just talk to each other about it and be on the same page with it. And it was really interesting to see how it just naturally developed, that just the way that we portrayed the character was different, even though we started from the same set of
Right.
facts. Like, this is what's going on in the script.
Mhm.
Did you find yourselves almost competing with one another? Maybe almost really being in an audition and you know, kind of wanting to do a little of one-upsmanship just because, you know, you're both doing the same part. Come on.
Right. I think if we're honest, at least if I'm honest, probably there's always a little bit of competition, or just even, you know, like when after we recorded and I watched the video, I was watching myself more because I was really, you know, concerned. Well, how did I look?
True.
I know Christy sounded good while we were doing it, but like I got to make sure that I came off okay.
No, I had the same problem when I was watching it, Katie. I was like, I had to purposefully be like, wait, I need to watch Katie now.
Right. And that's
Okay.
actually one of the challenges we also found with Zoom theater is it's so easy to watch yourself when you are doing it and not the other person.
It's like looking at a group picture and you look at yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you pick the one where you look the best.
Well,
Right.
duh.
Yeah.
Naturally, yeah, Katie, I didn't tell you this yet, but I actually, after watching the two videos, I was like, I kind of like the moments that I've have better, because we recorded this a couple times.
Yeah.
And we decided to do use the last take, but after like watching the last take and the one before, I was like, I think I had some better moments in that other take. So
I actually was thinking myself that I liked that take better. So
I should have talked to you before I edited the final footage. Maybe we would have ended up going with the other version. But there were a lot of things that I liked about the final version that we shot too. Like it all kind of balanced out, I think.
and it's also, I mean, Chrissy does a lot more film stuff than I do, but as theater actors, we're used to just, you've got to go with whatever happened in that moment. So you don't get multiple takes when it's live theater.
Right. No going back.
Yeah.
Right. Which I think it was partially to at least capture some of that, like you can't take it back after you say it, that you have in the live theater, as well as just to make the editing process easier, that we decided that we were just going to do the whole thing in one take and not
Yeah.
go through any sort of rigorous editing process.
Well, it makes it more authentic for theater.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, as I actually copied and pasted a copy of the script because I found it so interesting. And as I look at all these words, and she's got no give and take other than what she's doing herself. It seems to me that for an actor, it would just be a very, very challenging stream of consciousness. How did you get your arms around that? How did you approach that?
Well, I think at least it helped that we had the other person there who was reacting. But I know I kind of thought to myself, like, there are times when I'm just talking and I'm really not paying attention to what other else is saying, or like the thoughts are, it is kind of stream of consciousness. I think the thoughts are coming to her and she's just saying them. And especially for the first time. So that is kind of this, like, she can't not say anything more.
Yeah, it was interesting, like this character, like especially if I'm, like, for me personally, if I am around someone, unless I know the person really well, I don't rattle off like Madam X will do. I know some people who will do that, but it's not like my normal go-to. So it was interesting to explore a character who just, maybe, so, she's just been shopping. She's just been out shopping. She's got some Christmas presents for her kids. She's probably tired. She sees Amelia in this cafe and she's like, oh, I need to make sure that my life is better than hers. And so I'm going to go in that cafe and, I'm just going to say my piece. And I mean, she starts out with an insult, like, you're sitting here alone or you're sitting here alone on Christmas Eve like a poor old maid.
Mhm.
Like from the
Started out instantly with, as you said, with an insult.
yeah, but as far as the stream of consciousness goes, I mean, there are definitely times in my life, kind of like Katie was saying, where I can relate to just rattling stuff off. So I guess it's just taking that experience and figuring out how you can spread it out over over 14 minutes and try to keep it interesting.
But I also know, I was thinking to myself, I've had conversations with people where I'll leave and I'll realize, wow, I said maybe 3 words in that 20-minute conversation and they were just going. And so I was like, okay, I need to kind of channel those type of people.
You're not talking about me, are you?
No.
I've ever gone 14 minutes in a conversation without saying anything.
Yeah.
Well, and I sensed I was feeling frustration in Madam X as things kind of build. She's not getting anything back. I mean, she's getting a little bit back, but she's kind of hitting looking at a stone wall, and that just kind of gets her going more and more and more, and making her anger and insecurity rise.
And that's like a form of like power, right? So her, Madam Y, saying, I'm not going to respond to this. Keep on talking. I'm not going to say anything more.
It's part of the art of negotiation, is knowing when to say nothing.
Which is very hard to learn.
For some people.
For some people.
Oh. So Katie, I'm curious to know, what did you find most challenging about this piece, performing in this piece?
I think as we said, certainly this, it being one through line monologue where we don't hear what the other person is saying or thinking. But then also the idea of being able to stop mid-thought and then try to take up this other character at the same time. And then the Zoom differences of it just being harder to connect with the person that you're acting with. So other than that,
Piece of cake.
yeah. What about you, Christy?
No, I have similar thoughts on the matter, like especially the part where, after Madam X learns about the affair, to maintain the emotional integrity of what's going on with her, and then like drop it. Okay, now I'm Amelia,
Mm-hmm.
and then try to find it again when we were switching parts. I think that was
Challenging.
that was probably one of the most challenging bits in it. And then like I think there's so much more that Amelia and Mademoiselle Y has to offer that I think could very easily get lost in Zoom, because I think it's very fascinating that she doesn't say anything. I mean, she has lots of other things that she can do that are not words, like how she's reacting. But I do think, in this particular medium, I don't know if the audience can connect with her as strongly as they could if the two actors are in the same space and they're really able to feed off of each other, and you can see all of the subtle things that are happening between them.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially on Zoom, you're looking at the speaker most of the time. And, in real life, you would be, also looking at the person being spoken to and, how they were reacting much more than on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, and it says in the script, Amelia, Miss Y, is sitting there drinking a beer. It says it has a couple points where she laughs, which we put in, but so like she's not. It's not like she's sitting there and doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, I also appreciated, Christy and Katie, that you were in rooms with a neutral background.
Okay, good to know.
Because on, even watching now on the news when they're doing people's virtually, you're looking at what's on the walls behind them, what kind of flowers they have, and it's very distracting. So I really appreciated that we were focused on you two.
Yeah, I did not undecorate today, so hopefully it's not too distracting, but we were definitely intentional about trying to keep the background uncluttered. I mean, Katie didn't even put books on her bookshelf, so
No.
True dedication.
Right.
Well, unless you can read the titles, it really bothers me when you can't read the titles when you find people on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank all three of you so much for
exactly.
watching and for participating today. This is probably one of the most interactive talkbacks that I've ever been a part of. So you've been really fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
Well, the subject matter, the play was, I mean, there was so much about it. The play, the Zoom, the fact that both of you were doing both parts, and there was a lot to unpack.
Well, we appreciate that. And as far as we know, I think the Little Theater of Norfolk is going to make the video available, I think, maybe for another week or so. So if you want to share it with anyone, or someone who didn't get a chance to see it, certainly go ahead. If you want to go back and watch and say like, okay, does this make sense now? It should be available for longer.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go look up the War of Tulips.
I figured that your director bowed out because he's already moved on to another actress.
Could be.
He's got callbacks right now.
Right.
Undoubtedly, that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. And Christy, I hope to see you again in something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was great. I think I met you when you came down to Virginia Beach for Rose. So hopefully shall all meet again, and Katie and I will do another show together.
Great.
Yes, that'd be great. I